Fala galera, bem-vindos a mais um Sonoridades. Hoje o episódio com The Halo Effect. A banda lançou o disco Days of the Lost. É uma banda que mistura a galera do In Flames, que fez parte do In Flames, do Dark Tranquillity. O papo era pra ter saído um tempo atrás, a gente teve uma série de problemas que, graças ao bom Deus do heavy metal e do rock and roll, tá sendo resolvido. Então hoje vocês vão conferir esse papo. Vocês vão ver quem tá fazendo as perguntas é o Marcos Frank, nosso amigo Marcos Frank da Nuclear Blast. A gente fez um pool de imprensa ali, ele foi fazendo as perguntas. Então, para manter a integridade do material, a gente deixou as perguntas do Marcos, tá bom? Confiram aí. Rock and roll.
First question is kind of obvious. How was Halo Effect born?
Wow. It was born from just initially it was Nicholas and we started talking about music and festivals and stuff like that, and the fact that we don't get to see each other that much because he is always on tour, I'm always on tour, and we meet at airports and festivals. And then we met. There was these Grammy Awards in Stockholm, and In Flames were there and we were there. And on the train back, we started talking like, hey, man, it'd be fun to do something weird together, in the future, just, whenever we can. And, after a few beers, those things often come up, You talk, hey, let's do something. And then, of course, no one has any spare time and, it never happens. But the idea was still there. And then, a couple months later, he was like, yeah, what do you say? Like, I have some material that I would like to try out with you. And he sent me some stuff, and I thought it sounded great, and I was like, yeah, I can record, some demo. And I was just sitting here anyway, just finishing up the latest Dark Tranquillity album. So I was in a kind of a good creative mood, and I was like, yeah, fuck it, let's do it. So I recorded like a quick demo, and then he played that to Peter and Daniel, and then Peter called me. I was like, hey, I want to be a part of this. And I was like, oh, awesome, fantastic, and maybe Daniel too. And I was like, holy shit, he hasn't played drums in 5 years or something like that. Fantastic. And and then once we started talking, we were like, maybe we should talk to Jesper too, and it's like, see if he's up for it, and then it became just like one of those dreams come true for me, because we've known each other since we were kids basically, or like teens, and we haven't kind of done much together, but we've known each other. We hung out and we toured together. We've done all that stuff, but never really anything serious. So this was kind of like an opportunity to do that. And it started out just being a fun thing where we just record something and see what happens. But after we did a 3-song demo, and that felt fantastic. And we were like, hey, we're onto something here. This could be cool, and then I finished the Dark Tranquillity album, and then the pandemic hit at pretty much the same time, like at the end of that recording. So I was like, yeah, my schedule is clean, I have nothing on the calendar, so why not? And then that's when we started like doing this for real, and started making sense of the songs and started writing more and recording and all that. So that's how it started. And it was, it started before the pandemic, but it was made reality because of the time we were afforded by this, so that we could actually, be in the studio and just, get to it, work for real.
And even though the band is new, the experience you guys have is like immense. And and you built like Days of the Lost. Like, why? How did you like build Days of the Lost? Was there a lot of pressure? Was it like more of a relaxed production?
There really wasn't any pressure at all, because no one knew about it when we started. Like, we didn't tell anyone that we were doing this, and because we didn't have any expectations on ourselves of what it should be. Like the only premise was that it should be fun, it should be easy, and so once we started to kind of, when we started writing, it was just like, hey, does this feel good or not? Because I think, being in a band for a long time, like what ends up happening is that you constantly try to kind of evolve and change and steer to kind of new territories and find out new ways of expressing yourself. And that's fantastic. And I mean, I love that, because that's the challenge. You spend so much time trying to kind of reinvent your own sound and what you created, 15, 20, 30 years ago. But with this, it was just like, hey, what would we sound like if we had formed this band in 92 when we started hanging out, or the 90 or whatever, but with 30 years of experience, basically. So everything was, and Niklas is very spontaneous. He writes really fast and he goes like, yeah, this is awesome, let's do it. And Jesper is very instinctual as well. It's all kind of, muscle memory and metal DNA in him that just goes like, yeah, I think I have an idea. And then that's what comes out, And obviously, Daniel and Peter has been playing together for such a long time that they know each other in and out. So everything was very kind of direct when it came to writing and coming up with arrangements and all that stuff. So, and that was the fun part. And for me, I was like, I don't want to spend too much time on this either. I had an idea for the lyrics for the album, and I had an idea of like what I wanted it to sound like from my perspective. And that was it. And since, I trust all the other guys, to do whatever they want is going to be awesome. And that's, I think, what we all felt. And it was the same, like Nuclear Blast trusted us as well. They heard one song and they said, yeah, all right, let's do this. Here's the money for the recording. And then they didn't hear anything until the album was finished, which meant there were no pressure, no kind of expectations. The band, we basically felt like there was no future. We don't know what's coming at all. And there's no kind of past other than, our separate things. So we could just like focus on this being like in this time period, and especially working in a kind of vacuum of the pandemic helped that as well. So it was very much just a labor of love and not a pressure of any kind, which was very cool.
Like you guys took, like remembering the musical past of all the members of the band. Even though you guys opened a way for something new, was it intentional, or did it came up during the production of the album?
I mean, it came up as we were writing the first couple of songs. The first song written was Gateways, second one was Shadow Minds, and the third one was Feel What I Believe, I think. So we figured like, and everybody kind of agreed that, this is good stuff. Like, we like this direction. Let's keep going. And we basically said too, like, we don't need to change the world or anything. Like, we're not going to reinvent the wheel. We're not going to blow anyone's mind. Let's just focus on what we love to do and what we're good at, play to the strengths of each individual member and make the most out of it, and that made it easy too, to really just focus on making the best songs that we possibly could, without second guessing or kind of going like, maybe this could be that. And this, it's like, no, if it feels good, like really, really trust our instincts. And I think that kept the recording and the writing so kind of fresh and interesting. But we had more material that we know what to do with. So we spent a lot of time in the studio just recording more and more. And eventually it's like, okay, but these are the 10 songs that we feel very strongly about, that kind of fits together in a narrative way, and, and kind of has a beginning and a middle and an end kind of thing. And so, so that's how it happened. And I think being in the studio, we were just sitting there and like talking about the good old days, a lot of the time, just talking about, the shows that we did when we started out, and the different bands that we formed. And that made us kind of really connect to that time period. At the same time, we were trying to make music that is, not, retro, or not, kind of like a tribute to that, but rather than just more, I don't know, like more of a celebration of it, or without it sounding kind of retro. We didn't want it to sound like an old album. We wanted it to sound new and fresh, but at the same time having all the, history that we have obviously and experience. So it was fun we didn't have to think too hard about it. It was, everybody has that experience, and I think that when that comes into play, things become so much easier when you start something new like this.
You know that that people would compare you guys together with In Flames, right?
Of course. I mean, that goes without saying. And, and everybody's like, yeah, it sounds a little bit more like DT than In Flames or whatever. And it's like, of course, there's some, this connective tissue. And obviously, with all the history that we have, and the, the incestuous nature of the bands here in Gothenburg, that, that of course that happens. But I think we felt early on that, we will try our best to make sure that this feels like something different, that it feels more like a Gothenburg, that band that could have started back then, or and I think, there's obviously, people will recognize Jesper's melody writing, my lyrics, and my voice, and Nicholas's writing, and, and Daniel's drumming and all the stuff, obviously, that goes without saying. So, so yeah, but I think so far what I've seen in terms of, comments and reactions and comparisons made, I think people have been really kind of positive around it. That was something that was kind of worried about. I don't want it to be kind of like, yeah, I think this is better than that, or, this kind of negative kind of commentary that is kind of prevalent on YouTube and, Blabbermouth and all that stuff. But so far, it feels like people are just kind of accepting of this and feel like it's cool that Jesper is back, and that everybody's kind of back and doing this again. And for me, that's what I want too. That's the reason why I kind of said yes to this, was so that I could play with these guys and have Jesper kind of back on guitar, and to have, Nicholas back with Daniel and Peter and that kind of stuff. It just felt like a cool thing to be a part of. And if I've sensed like that there's any kind of competition or anything like that, and it's like, no, screw it, then it's not interesting. But that's not it at all. This is just friends hanging out and making music together. There
is a place that holds the answer when nothing calls to be set free. When it ends and it begins with utter silence. When holds what is better kept inside.
I sometimes think maybe you should have done Justice Race again.
I'm like that too, I'm a super music, like, a geek when it comes to that, and with bands that I love, and it's like, oh man, I wish I could hear like a new recording of that, or like a different take on it, and something that happened, and you're always disappointed, because it never ends up well, because the feeling you had when you heard an album the first time, that's what you really need, and then maybe you hear a song live, and that's, it becomes even better. But re-recordings or anything like that, I mean, yeah, I don't think there's any good examples of that ever happening.
I would like to ask you about sound reference you guys used on Days of the Lost, but I already think this would be like more your own experience with your own bands, right?
Yeah, I mean, partly, we wanted to sound like massive and cool and all that stuff, of course. And we wanted it to be, just heavy. And, what was so important for me was to hear these guys play together, and have that, like the rhythm and the kind of intensity of the sound together. So at first we talked about like recording it live, like really being in the room together and like have that. But we wanted to capture that. So we did that as much as possible for the recording, just to get that vibe and to get that feel. But I mean, even when we didn't, they knew each other so well that it really, like, everybody plays in the pocket and just this super tight sound. And so when it came to mixing, I was like, I just came from Jens Bogren, and he mixed a moment with Dr. Quillity, and it sounded so fantastic, and he gets that. So I asked him, like, are you interested? And he was like, I have so much work to do, it's insane, but of course I will. And he did it, on weekends and late nights and that kind of stuff. It was just insane. But he truly, for me, he really understands like that even though it's, it's heavy and it's death metal, it should sound like timeless and heavy, but also like in a high fidelity way, where you can listen to it in the best possible headphones and it sounds fantastic, and you can turn it up super loud and it still sounds awesome, that kind of stuff. And so yeah, sound wise, I'm really happy with the way it came out, because it's super heavy and it's groovy, and it has all the stuff that I heard initially when we started writing the first couple of songs, and I was like, I know what this is going to sound like when it's finished, and it superseded even that.
And would it be like the 2.0 Gothenburg sound now?
I don't know. No, I don't know. Everybody's trying to, all the bands from Gothenburg are trying to kind of do different things, obviously, and maybe this is just like the 1.0. I don't know. Like this is not like for me, it's not necessarily like an evolution of it or anything like that. It's maybe more of a celebration or a celebration of kind of our history in the scene, rather than in the bands that we've been in.
Knowing it will never end.
Here in Brazil, at least, we talk a lot about the Gothenburg sound and how it was like super important for the heavy metal scene in the 90s, with a lot of bands being part of it. For the people that do not know about this movement, what could you talk about this today?
Wow, yeah, I mean, it was beginning in the 90s. There was, at least for me or for Dr. Quillity, we started out as just like a couple of bands. There were some bands in town that played like thrash. There was like one kind of black metal-ish band was Grotesque that later became At the Gates, and there was some prog bands, and there was really cool stuff going on. And the end of the 90s, I started listening, and the end of the 80s, I started listening to death metal and black metal coming from Germany and from America and South America, and and you were blown away by it, but it was still this underground scene. But so when we started making music, we wanted it to be different, and also incorporate all the kind of like the melodies and stuff that we love from bands like Iron Maiden or Halloween or Thin Lizzy or something like that. It was just like, hey, because we figured like we love the intensity of death metal. You love the brutality and the speed and all that stuff. You love that, but at the same time, lyrics wise, I was like, I don't like this, and like it's all kind of horror movie stuff, and it's just, I don't know. And then it was also sometimes just like technical or super brutal, and I always loved like the melodies from Halloween or Blind Guardian and speed metal bands like that. So incorporating that into the death metal was a challenge for us, and it was kind of similar for the other bands as well. Like we all had very different, kind of similar influences. We liked the same kind of bands. We grew up with the same bands. We hung out at the same parties, listening to music. So that became kind of something that we strive for. You want the intensity, the aggression of death metal and thrash, but the melody of more traditional heavy metal, and something that is emotionally challenging as well, not just like brutal and heavy and all that stuff. It has to, you have to feel something, and that's where melody comes in. I feel so striking that balance was I think became kind of like the Gothenburg sound. And of course, it helped that we recorded in the same studio that sounded fantastic, Studio Fredman, where we recorded the gallery and the Just a Race and Slaughter of the Soul was recorded there. And so I think that the combination between like how good the album sounded, but also like that we kind of grew up with the same influences, even though our music is very different, still has those values, where it should be, you should feel something as well as just like having that feeling of aggression, and I think the difference between like Gotham and Stockholm at the time was like the Stockholm bands had more of a thrash and punk background, and that became like a heavier, more kind of grungy, noisy sound, whereas in Gothenburg we strive to kind of incorporate melody and do it in a different way. And so that's at least the way I see it, and the way I experienced it back then.
Wow. And when you take all of this and you create a record like the Halo effect and put it in nowadays, how do people react to this?
So far, it's been good. I can't complain. I mean, it's been insane. Like when we released the first video, and and nobody knew about it, and we kept it under wraps until the release day of the video, basically. So that was really exciting to see, just like people getting blown away by the song and the fact that we were playing together, and so that was a lot of fun. And of course the reaction from all the videos has been fantastic. And then we played our first show at Sweden Rock Festival here in Sweden 3 weeks ago, and it was incredible. We played the entire album on the main stage of this festival in front of 25,000 people, and it was insane. So we were off to a very, very good start, and I feel that there's a lot of like positivity around the band, and that people are kind of been dying for this, for this band to come and do something that maybe they've been missing for a while. And so I'm really, really excited, and we're gonna have a lot of fun this year because there's a lot of stuff to do.
And Ivers must have feeling himself like super excited, since he's a reference for bass players in this kind of playing in death metal melodic.
Sure. Right? Yeah, it's amazing, and I think and I think in general, just doing something where we can kind of be in full control without any expectations has been so liberating, we were just talking today. It's like, we still can do anything. We don't have to kind of conform to anything. We can play as much or as little as possible. Anything goes. This is something that we kind of decide, and I think that will make sure that this is going to be something that we can, keep doing for a while. Because it's so effortless and cool and fun.
For you and maybe for Peter, which are the songs that are most difficult for you guys to play for this album?
Oh, we still only have played once, so but
everything.
I don't know, and it's different for all of us, I think. But it was a challenge just to get it right and get the mood right. I mean, we only rehearsed like all of us together for the first time like a month ago. And we recorded the album a year ago or something like that. So it's been a while. But it was difficult to kind of strike the balance and to kind of get into it again and to find a sound. But again, we all have enough experience that was kind of easy once we got started. And so yeah, it's going to be a challenge to kind of find a set list for shorter sets, because we're doing this tour with Amon Amarth and Machine Head in September, October. We're going to play for like 35 minutes or something like that. That's going to be the hardest part. but the songs, I think we pretty much know. I mean, it's pretty straightforward, you know.
Could like make a brief resume what this new trip for Halo Effect is, what would it be?
Oh, wow. I mean, I think for me it's more work but different. for Daniel, it's kind of coming back to something that he's missed. But he hasn't missed, you know, like the super heavy hard work and all that, the expectation, the pressure. I think like doing this as, you know, like a hobby again, you know what I mean? Like at least treat it like a hobby again is something that he's missed. And it's kind of like the same for Peter and Niklas as well. And for Jesper, this is kind of like a comeback for him to, you know, because he hasn't been on stage for a long time, and he's just and also like just having him in the studio and having him write, you know, really heavy, fucking intense death metal riffs again is part of like a journey back kind of thing, and so it's and I think that's what I'm most excited about, to like have everybody back in its place, you know, and just see what kind of magic we can come up with together.
When you think about the Peter Ivers from the 90s, would you see him today now playing on the Halo Effect, or would you like you wouldn't see him like this nowadays, like with Jesper and everyone together?
No, it's you know, I've known Peter since I was, you know, 16, 17 or something like that, and we lived on the same street when he joined In Flames, and it was very different because I was like, oh, you're gonna start playing with In Flames? Like, yeah, you know, that's awesome, you know, and he, yeah, and that was 20 years of his life, you know. It was just crazy, but at the same time, like we always kind of hung out because we've always been neighbors over the last 20 years or so. So it's always been about all the other things, you know. Like you just like hanging out, like drinking beer, like, you know, hanging out with the families and all that stuff. So kind of like doing music together has never really, I never thought about it. You know, it was like this never come up. But now that we're doing it, it's pretty damn fantastic and fun. And it's the same with Daniel. Like, you know, all we ever talk about is like beer brewing and stuff like that, which is his kind of job now. So that's super cool. And Jesper I haven't seen in such a long time. So there's a lot of kind of reconnecting, you know, that has been done in the last 2 years since we started this. So it's been super cool in that respect, and that was one of the reasons why, again, like I wanted to be a part of this, just so that I could be, so we can hang out more and kind of reconnect.
Would you call this more of a project, or would you call that already a new band?
It is definitely a new band. It started out as a project or an idea, you know, but because of the time we had, I think we made it into like a proper band, and we want to treat it as such because we want to make sure that we do everything we possibly can to make this as good as it possibly can be. You know, we want to do some tours. We want to do cool festivals, and we're already starting to plan for more recordings and the next album and that kind of stuff. So everybody's just excited, and because it felt good, and we were on a roll. And you really can't hold Niklas and Jesper back, once they get started. So they're already started writing new stuff. So it's just let's keep up. It's going to be a lot of work in the next couple of years, that's for sure.
When you think about the Gothenburg sound and how this marked a lot of generations of band that have success today, and you come with a new project, how do you see like this with the new fans that are looking for this kind of new way of music together with this old style of Gothenburg? How you as musicians see that?
I mean, that's an interesting aspect of it, because obviously, DT, we have our fans, In Flames have their fans, and At the Gates have their fans, and like either people have been in it for a long time, depending on when you discover certain bands or when you discover a genre or the sound or whatever. So a lot of the people I've talked to so far, and the reactions I've seen is like, oh, love it, just because it's good, and they maybe don't have any history, they maybe know a few DT songs, a few In Flames songs there, but maybe they just like the Swedish metal, and then you got the really old school fans who know everything and have all the records. They love it too. So I'm really happy that it's kind of like transcending at least generations, but hopefully also like genre fans. It doesn't have to be you don't have to be like that old school death metal hardcore fan to dig it. You can dig it anyway. So I'm hoping that it's for new and old fans alike, and I really have seen that in comments and with the people I've met as we've been touring this year. It's been really cool to see, like, people, and some people know only this band because they've seen the videos and they was like, yeah, I love it. And it's like, and I have no idea who we are or anything like that, which is that is the best, actually. I mean, that's even better because you bring them in just by the music and nothing else. That's kind of cool without the legacy or whatever.
This journalist found some dark things coming from the pop world, like Sisters of Mercy and Joy Division in your music and this kind of atmosphere. Are they an influence, inspiration at least, for the lyrics of this album?
It has always been like whenever I've written my whole life, I think that's been an inspiration, just to find kind of an emotional connection to every song, and that it has to mean something, or you have to feel something. Otherwise, what's the point? So lyrically, I try to kind of connect with whatever was happening when we started out, when I met Niklas and Peter and Daniel for the first time, and who we were back then and what we were going through, like what made us get into this, like, metal and music and musicianship and writing and becoming a band. Like, what was it? And of course it was because you felt like an outsider, like you didn't feel you belonged anywhere. And then you found music and something extreme that no one else liked, and you were kind of shunned because of who you were back then. But it didn't matter because we were such a close-knit, cool community of friends who hung out, and that's all that mattered, And I grew up, listening to Joy Division and Depeche Mode and mess like that, and singing constantly to that. And so that aspect, like these kind of, emotional, kind of like darker lyrics, has always been there for me. And so kind of connecting with, kind of not childhood, but maybe, adolescence, or like when we were teenagers, has been an inspiration. And I've taken inspiration from the other guys in the band, like what they've been through too, because we've had kind of, had this journey in life that has been kind of similar yet very different. So as we were talking a lot in the studio, I try to kind of like gauge everyone's feeling, and hear stories that inspired me to write. So that made it kind of easy to write this album, just because I could kind of write more about them than about me, but because we have very much a lot of shared history, obviously, and but then of course when it comes to like clean vocals, that's how I started singing, so that comes through, of course, and I think the way that Jesper and Niklas write, a lot of it comes from like melancholy as well. It's I mean, it's a very Swedish thing too, because of how kind of Swedish folk music has always been there with us too, and that's how kind of Jesper started. Like his dad is a folk musician, so, and he grew up listening to that. So when he started playing guitar, like a lot of those very sad kind of minor chord melodies was how he got started, and that became part of his sound, when he started writing music. So that's definitely, this. And for me, that's important, even though it's aggressive, kind of intense music, but it's not happy, it's not cheerful, but it is a release for us. And I think, so you can be on stage and you can sing about this kind of difficult times, but at the same time, like you sing about it in the past tense, and that makes it easy to kind of get over it and get through it.
Yeah, and one of the great things Gothenburg Sound brought us was putting the keyboards inside of songs. And even though there are keyboards in there, nobody in the heavy metal band in the 80s said, "Oh, this is bad because I can't see any weight to that song." And how do you think this connection between keyboards and riffs and a guitar when it comes to making music and the style you have?
I think, I mean, for me, like when we started, like we used it on our first demo with Dr. Tranquility and first album, and we always wanted a keyboard player, but it wasn't until we could convince Martin Brännström to join us in '99 that we could have like a proper one. But it was always to enhance melody and to kind of enhance what was already there, with a different sound that kind of accentuates the melodies and harmonies. And so that was, for me, that's the biggest thing. Of course, you can also do rhythm stuff. You can do layering and all kinds of stuff, that kind of adds to the heaviness of songs, and just to make it, harder or more mellow or whatever. Like you can use it as a, even though it's a very static, electronic instrument, it can still kind of add to the emotion of a song just through the different layers of sounds. And that's what I really find interesting. And the way we used it with Halo Effect was just like to accentuate some of the melodies, but also accentuate some of the rhythms as well, to just have something pulsating together with the bass and drum, and to kind of highlight certain. So it becomes more of a production tool, I think, in that respect. Because the music is very guitar driven, obviously, and vocal driven, but you can have that as kind of like accentuate certain things, and that makes it really interesting, I think. So, but it's all, and I've never been, we don't need, piano solos or, synth solos or anything. That's not what it's about. It's about highlighting what the song is,
And he's asking, what was Reroute to Remain like a reference for the Halo Effect? When you think about that classical In Flames sound from the Reroute to Remain era, was it also a difference?
I don't think so. I mean, I love that album. I think it's fantastic, and but no, I don't think so. But obviously, I mean, the other guys were a big part of it, and so maybe that's something of course they have that experience, so of course that double color and will somehow affect them, but I don't think it ever came up, so I don't think that was a particular influence, but of course, everything is part of what you do, right?
To oblivion we cast it down.